Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive, and this time we're going way back to explore the lives of hunter-gatherers.
Really fascinating stuff, yeah.
Yeah, we've got a whole bunch of videos and other sources we've been looking at
Right.
because, there are no written records from those days.
hmm
It's a real challenge to try to picture,
Yeah, like a big puzzle.
yeah, what their daily lives were like. But you know what? One of the things that really surprised me, and we'll talk about this in more detail later, is that it seems like women might have played a much bigger role than we thought,
Yeah, that's right.
especially when it comes to things like cave paintings.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
always pictured, cavemen out there hunting,
Right.
bringing down the mammoth and that.
And drawing on the cave walls afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Mm.
like the classic image.
Yeah. Well, it turns out there's some pretty compelling evidence that challenges that whole idea.
Oh, really?
Yeah. See, researchers have been analyzing the handprints that are found in many caves,
Good.
and some of these handprints date back like 40,000 years or more, which is incredible.
Wow, that's old.
It is. And what's really interesting is that when they looked at the size and shape of these handprints,
Okay.
a lot of them seem to have been made by women.
Hmm. So that kind of throws a wrench in the whole
Yeah.
men are the artists
Yeah.
narrative, I guess.
Yeah, it really does challenge our assumptions, doesn't it?
Yeah, so were the women just kind of hanging out back at the cave, decorating while the guys were out hunting, or?
I think it's more complicated than that.
Yeah,
It's really easy to kind of fall into the trap of projecting our own modern ideas about gender roles onto the past,
right.
but we have to be careful about that.
Yeah, makes sense.
What if those cave paintings weren't just about hunting? What if they were also about, like, spirituality
Okay.
or documenting different aspects of their lives, maybe even a way to express themselves creatively?
Right. So it's like you can't just look at modern graffiti and
Yeah.
assume it's
Okay.
all about, gangs marking territory or something.
Yeah, there's so much more to it.
Right?
And there's probably a lot more to those cave paintings than we realize.
For sure. So when we talk about hunter-gatherers, we are talking about a way of life that like dominated for a really long time, right?
Yeah, we're talking about the entire old Stone Age, basically,
Okay.
which stretched from something like 2.5 million years ago
Wow.
all the way to about 10,000 BC.
That's like most of human history.
It really is, yeah. For the vast majority of human existence, that's how our ancestors lived.
It really makes you think about like, what we can learn from them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially today when we're so disconnected from nature and everything.
Exactly. I think one of the key things to understand about hunter-gatherers is this concept of the means of existence.
Okay, means of existence.
Yeah, it basically means that everything in their lives revolved around survival.
Right, that makes sense.
Their social structures, their beliefs, even their art. It all stemmed from this fundamental need to survive in a world that was constantly changing.
So, like, no grocery stores or
Nope.
online shopping back then.
Not even close. They lived in small, nomadic groups, always on the move,
Right.
following the migrations of animals, the seasons, wherever they could find food and resources.
Wow. Talk about a minimalist lifestyle.
Yeah, definitely minimalist.
But, I mean, they must have had to be incredibly resourceful, too.
Oh, absolutely. They were masters of using whatever nature provided. They made
Right.
tools out of stone, bone, wood, you name it.
Yeah.
Developed really intricate hunting strategies.
Wow.
And they had this incredible knowledge of plants, which they used for food, medicine, even building materials.
Like, they were like walking Wikipedias.
Yeah, pretty much. They couldn't just Google how to make fire or...
Or look up what plants were safe to eat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why this whole idea that hunter-gatherers were somehow simple or primitive is just wrong.
Yeah. I think that's a misconception a lot of people have.
It is. Their way of life demanded incredible skill, knowledge, and observation.
Right.
They had to be adaptable, innovative, and most importantly, they had to work together.
Right. So speaking of working together, I'm curious about how these societies were actually structured.
Okay, yeah.
Like, did they have leaders? Did they have laws? Or was it more of a...
Oh, that's a good question. They didn't have the kind of complex political systems that we have today,
Right.
With presidents and parliaments and all that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just chaos either.
Okay.
They relied on strong social bonds and a kind of shared decision-making process.
I see.
Think of it more like a really close-knit community
Okay.
where everyone had a role to play and their survival depended on cooperation.
Yeah, that makes sense. There was one thing I read about that really kind of creeped me out in a fascinating way, I guess you could say.
Oh, okay. What was that?
This term Grafgiften.
Ah, yeah, Graf Giften.
I don't even know how to say it, but
You got it.
I saw that in the research and it just kind of stuck with me.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting concept. Basically, it refers to the objects that were buried with the dead in these societies.
So like tools, jewelry, weapons, things like that.
Yeah, all kinds of things. Even animal remains sometimes. It's
Wow.
like they were packing them for a really long journey.
Right. It makes you wonder why they did that.
Well, a lot of researchers believe it gives us some clues about their beliefs about the afterlife.
Okay.
Maybe they saw death as a journey,
Yeah.
and these objects were like provisions for the deceased in the next world.
So like sending them off with a friendly charged phone and a
Yeah, like
good book or something.
exactly.
It could also be a way of honoring the dead, though, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Like recognizing their skills and status.
Yeah. For instance, a skilled hunter might be buried with his finest spear,
Oh, okay.
or a respected elder with some intricate beadwork or something like that.
I can't help but picture archaeologists thousands of years from now, like digging up our stuff and trying to figure out what it all means.
I know, right? Like, what are they going to think when they find a...
Like a half-eaten bag of chips or,
Exactly.
a selfie stick.
Yeah, it really makes you think.
Yeah, it really does. But I guess that's what's so fascinating about material culture, right?
It is.
It can tell us so much about a society's beliefs and values.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like they're sending them off with everything they need for the afterlife, right?
Right, like their favorite stuff.
Exactly, yeah.
It's really interesting.
But you know what's even more interesting?
What's that?
There are still hunter-gatherer groups living in the world today.
Wait, really? I
Yeah.
thought that way of life, like, disappeared ages ago.
You'd think so, right? But there are a few groups, mostly in very remote areas,
Okay.
like rainforests or the Arctic.
Wow, that's amazing. So they're like living links to the past.
They really are, yeah. It's like having a window into how humans lived for thousands and thousands of years.
It's incredible. I bet they face a lot of challenges in the modern world, but they must also hold so much wisdom and knowledge.
Absolutely. And their lifestyles often emphasize things that we're kind of rediscovering now, like a deep connection to nature
Right.
and sustainable practices.
Okay, so what can we learn from them? Like, what kind of insights do they offer?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is just how adaptable humans are.
Okay.
They show us that we can thrive in all kinds of environments, from deserts to the Arctic,
Right.
by using our ingenuity and traditional knowledge.
That's so cool. I mean, imagine having to hunt your own food or build your own shelter from scratch.
Yeah, it really puts things in perspective, doesn't it?
It does. And they must have such an intimate knowledge of their surroundings.
Oh, absolutely. They understand the ecosystems they live in, the behavior of animals, the plants they can use for food and medicine, everything.
Wow. It's like they have this whole encyclopedia of knowledge in their heads.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And they've mastered skills that most of us have completely lost.
Yeah, for sure. And let's not forget the importance of social cooperation in their survival.
Right. Oh, that's crucial.
I mean, they rely on each other
Yeah.
for everything.
Absolutely. They have strong community bonds, shared decision-making,
Right.
and they support each other through thick and thin.
That's something I think we've lost a bit in modern society.
Yeah, it's definitely something to think about.
Yeah, for sure. Those videos we were talking about earlier, some of them showed some amazing examples of the tools and techniques they used.
Oh, yeah, those were really fascinating.
Yeah, those intricately crafted stone tools.
I know, right? And to think they made those with such simple materials,
It's incredible.
and each tool was designed for a specific purpose.
Yeah, like scraping hides, hunting, preparing food, even making art.
Exactly. It's mind-blowing how resourceful they were.
And it wasn't just tools, right?
No, they used natural materials for everything.
Like a,
Shelters, clothing, baskets, weapons, you name it.
wow. It's like they were living in a completely sustainable world.
In a way, they were. They took only what they needed from nature,
Right.
and they didn't leave a lot of waste behind.
It's a stark contrast to how we live today.
It really is. But maybe there's some lessons we can learn from their approach.
I think so, yeah. Especially when it comes to facing our own environmental challenges.
Right. I mean, they understood that their survival depended on maintaining a balance with nature.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think we've lost sight of that a bit.
It seems like it sometimes. But by studying these ancient ways of life,
Yeah,
we can rediscover some valuable insights.
absolutely. It's not just about the past, it's about the present and the future, too.
Exactly. It's about understanding our place in the world and finding inspiration for a better way forward.
I totally agree. I feel like we've only scratched the surface of this topic, though.
I know, it's so fascinating. But Unfortunately, we're running out of time for this deep dive.
I know, right? It's like we could go on forever. But before we wrap up, let's maybe just touch on some of the key things that we've learned about hunter-gatherers.
Yeah.
I mean, where do we even begin?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much, right? But I think for me, one of the biggest takeaways is that, like, our understanding of these societies is always changing.
Right.
Like the idea that women might have a much bigger role than we thought, that's really fascinating to me.
Yeah, it's like we're constantly learning new things.
Exactly. And those handprints in the caves, that really got me thinking.
Yeah, me too. And it's just amazing to think that these societies, which we often think of as simple or primitive, they actually thrived for like tens of thousands of years.
Yeah, they were incredibly resilient.
Yeah, they adapted, they understood their environment. There's so much we can learn from them, especially today.
Absolutely. Especially when we're facing so many challenges like climate change and everything.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. Like hunter-gatherers, they lived in a way that was sustainable.
Right. They didn't waste anything.
Yeah, they took only what they needed. They understood that balance with nature was important.
Exactly. And that's something we really need to pay attention to now.
Yeah, for sure. And the whole idea of community, that's another thing that really stood out to me.
Oh, definitely. Their emphasis on cooperation, on sharing, on supporting each other, that's really inspiring.
Yeah, like they knew that they had to work together to survive.
Right. It wasn't about individualism, it was about the group.
Yeah, that's a powerful message, I think.
It really is. And that's what I love about exploring these topics.
Mm.
It not only teaches us about the past, but it also makes us think about the present and the future.
Absolutely. It's like a journey through time that brings us back with like fresh perspectives and a
Totally.
new way of seeing things.
Yeah, it really is. So, as we wrap up, is there like one thing that you really want our listeners to take away from all of this?
Hmm. It's I guess I would say just remember that like the human story is full of surprises.
Yeah, definitely.
We're always learning new things, reinterpreting the past, and who knows what else is out there waiting to be discovered.
Right, that's what makes it so exciting.
Totally. It's a never-ending quest for knowledge and understanding.
Yeah, absolutely.
And speaking of quests, we have a little challenge for you, our listeners. We talked about graph gifting earlier, those objects that were buried with the dead
Yeah.
and how they kind of reflected a person's life and values. So we want to know, what objects would you choose as your own graph gifting?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, what would you want future generations to know about you based on the things you left behind?
Yeah, think about it, everyone, and let us know in the comments below.
We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, and while you're at it, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives like this one.
Hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next historical adventure.
Absolutely. And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the mysteries of the past.
We'll see you soon.